Carrier Global closing its acquisition of Viessmann Climate Solutions today after the deal was approved recently by the European Union. And the company has been busy in the deal space, selling a commercial refrigeration business to Honeywell for nearly $5 billion last month, and it's putting other businesses up for sale this year. Joining us now is David Gitlin, Carrier Global Chairman and CEO. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Josh.
And you have been making these changes, but really it's about an overall remaking of Carrier, right? So talk to us about the vision of how investors, how the public should think about what the new Carrier is.
It started with our North Star, which is to be the global leader in intelligent climate and energy solutions. Effectively, all things come back to sustainability for us. So we actually are in the process of divesting one of our three divisions, our fire and security business, because we said that did not ladder up to our North Star. Our stationary refrigeration business, we just announced a sale for that. And the really exciting thing that we closed on this morning was buying a company that's all about sustainability. It's this Viessmann Climate Solutions business that not only does heat pumps, which is electric, it's a transition away from gas boilers to heat pumps, but they also do solar PV, they do battery storage, they do complete home energy management solutions with the heat pump, with the utility overlay. So it's really, for us, all about sustainability. And when you think about business, the ability to be part of a transformation of a company is one of the most exciting things. So we are so energized about 2024, and we're starting on a great foot with our closure of Viessmann Climate Solutions today.
And Dave, for Viessmann, I'm just interested, so it's not the only player in Europe. What's the competitive landscape look like over there? And what are sort of Viessmann's advantages?
Well, it's very difficult to break into the residential HVAC space in Europe. We're usually number one or two in just about every space, number one in commercial for HVAC in Europe. But when you look at the residential space, it's many multi-generational family-owned businesses. And we happen to hit it off because we are so complementary. What really differentiates them is, number one, their channel. They have a direct-to-installer relationship with 80,000 individual installers. Number two is their brand. It's respected obviously throughout Germany, but throughout Europe as well. They have a technology advantage, and they're the only company in the world that has complete home energy management solutions.
So you talked a little bit about heat pumps and sort of this transitional energy phase that we're in. 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, how are we going to be heating and cooling our homes and office buildings?
Electric. Yeah, so when you look at you think about transitions you're seeing to varying degrees in automotive as we transition to electric vehicles. You want to bet on the right company in the right space. If you're in the United States, you'd bet on California. 5 years ago, 2% of the vehicles sold in California were EVs. Today, it's 20%. If you look at just 2 years ago in Germany, they were selling 100,000 heat pumps a year. Today, this past year was 300,000. A couple years from now, it'll be 500,000. The growth in this transition from gas and oil boilers or furnaces to heat pumps is exponential. And that's why it's happening most in Europe. So that is the space you want to be in. Just like the California for EVs, that's Europe. And it's a combination of consumer interest moving towards more sustainable solution, but it's also subsidies. There's 21 countries in Europe that have subsidies encouraging this transition to heat pumps, but it's also regulation. There's 12 countries in Germany, in Europe, that have now banned gas and oil boilers for new home construction, and they will outlaw it for replacement in the next 3 to 5 years. So the growth there is going to be exponential.
And is the way you guys operate that you're agnostic of the source of the electricity, so to speak? In other words, solar, I guess geothermal's in there too when you're talking about some of these heat pumps are enabled. Like, how does that all fit together?
Well, yes, to some extent, but we also have a commercial heat pump business as well. So we can be part of the solution. So as you start to see a transition to district heating as well, it's really a nice solution for us because we can provide the commercial heat pump for the underlying energy. Then we can also provide like apartment transfer units once it gets to the apartment. So we support all things renewables. And what's nice about Europe, especially, is that everyone has to ladder up to Fit for 55, which is 55% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2030. So it all comes back to all things sustainability.
And Dave, you talk about this big transformation that's occurring, but I'm interested in how sort of the macro plays into this, concerns about the economy in 2024. How can a weak economy affect demand in residential and commercial?
What's nice about CARR is we have balance. We saw it last year. Like last year, we saw a weak housing market in the United States. We saw some challenges in Europe, but we still had nice growth. We're going to grow into 2024 as well, for sure. Not for sure, but we feel very confident in our growth in 24. It's because when you fish, you go where the fish are. With customers, you go where the customers are. So if you see a little bit of tightening in housing, we can pivot to data centers. If we see infrastructure slow in certain areas, we can move over to commercial. So I do see, commercial construction has been a little bit weak. Maybe it starts to come back a little bit in 24. The housing market should rebound a bit in the United States. We do see very strong growth in residential in Europe because of these transitions. I'm talking about this transition to heat pump. We're very bullish on India. We're very bullish on Saudi Arabia. So what we at CARR have done very, very adept at is controlling the controllables. The economy will, do what it's going to do. We actually always see pockets of growth depending on the right vertical in the right countries.
So let me ask that a different way then. What are you seeing in your business? Let's talk specifically about the U.S. for a moment. And what does it tell you about where we're going to see growth this year? How is residential going to be, for example, versus some of those other areas you talked about?
Yeah, when we looked at the United States, what we would have seen last year, for example, was weak on the housing side for the replacement business because we had been coming off 3 years where it was so strong, so many people moving. Mortgage rates, 8%, that had a bit of a dulling effect on the housing market. Now they're 30 years down to 6.5. We should start to see that rebound a little bit. There's pent up demand for people moving. Commercial construction was light last year. I think that probably continues a little bit. We saw very good strength in K through 12. A lot of money going into that. A lot of money going to higher education. A lot of money going into healthcare. A lot of money going into data centers. The CHIPS Act's bringing in back infrastructure spending into the United States. So we saw in some of the key commercial verticals very strong growth. Our backlog in our commercial HVAC business is up 40% on a 2-year stack.
So that's still going to continue.
Yeah, that continues into next year. That means we're pretty well booked for the year in commercial HVAC as we go into next year. So we see strength there, and then we start to see on some of our shorter cycle businesses, our backlogs are kind of back where they normally should be. So with economy start to rebound a bit, that short cycle business should get some lift as we go into next year.
All right, we'll be watching. Dave, thank you so much for your time and insight and coming in today.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.